If you're not getting results from your workouts, you do not need to program hop to a brand new program, but there are some things you do need to do. That's exactly what we're going to be covering on this week's episode of the Exercises Health Podcast. We're going to cue our introduction and dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back, exercisers, to the Exercise is Health Podcast, brought to you by Muscle Activation Schaumburg and Exercise for Life Studios, where we believe that your health is your most valuable asset. And the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise. Specifically, exercise is geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. We're your hosts, Charlie
and Julie.
And today we are discussing results, all right? Because we are about to go into the new year and everybody is going to be focused on starting new habits, getting into new routines in order to try to drive results from a fitness and health and working out strength perspective. But if we're talking about results, we need to figure out how we actually go about getting results, because while many people want to just jump from one new thing to the next, thinking that is what is going to get them the results, the thing that they're not currently doing that they then need to do, the new thing, we actually have a different perspective, and that's what we want to share with you today.
The first thing I think we should talk about is what are results from workouts. And I know this seems kind of silly because you're like, well, obviously we all know what we're looking to get out of working out. But there are a lot of things that tell you your workouts are working that a lot of people never acknowledge. I think one of the most common ones that people use their exercise for is weight loss, which is very different than what we look for in the exercises. So when we're thinking about working out to build your body, to build your strength and function, things that are signs that your workouts are currently doing a good job is that you're noticing an increase in strength. That can mean that your weights are going up in your workouts. That can mean that you're lifting stuff at home that used to be really hard and now it's not so hard. Or it used to be you couldn't do it and now you do it and it's just hard, meaning like you're able to do more things. Another one is that your endurance is starting to increase. That means that you are able to handle more exercises for longer periods of time. So maybe when you used to walk, you used to get wiped out after a mile. Now you can go a mile and a quarter. Now you can go a mile and a half. That's a sign that you can last longer or you have more endurance. Another one is body awareness. So how aware and connected are you to your body? So things like you have less missteps when you're moving around. You drop things less. You're more aware of how your body's feeling throughout the day. That's a big one as you start to strengthen your body. Another one is balance. So you're tripping less. You're able to catch your balance when you feel off balance more. You're less wobbly when you're doing things. And the last one that is big is you have less limitations in your body. So a lot of people experience limitations as tightness or zinging or a limit in emotion, like, oh, every time I reach over to grab my seatbelt, it feels like I can't fully reach it and I have to do something funky to get it. So you're noticing less and less limitations. Now, the important thing to note here when we're talking about results from your workout is that we're not comparing this to your all-time high of your whole life. So a lot of people will be like, in their 50s, maybe, this is just an example, they're in their 50s, they're exercising, and they're like, well, this isn't working because it's not like how I used to be in my 20s. We're not comparing your 50s to your 20s. We're comparing where were you last year? Where were you before you started this exercise regimen? Because exercise will work as like a process of improvement, not necessarily, it's not going to jump you back to where you were. You could build up to that, but to know if it's working, it doesn't mean that you never trip. It doesn't mean that you never lose your balance. It doesn't mean that, you're super strong all the time and you can lift everything, open every jar, handle all exercises all day long. You have perfect strength, perfect endurance, perfect body awareness. But the thing is that it's improving as you exercise.
That's exactly right. It may not be to the level that you want. It may not be happening as fast as you want, but it is going in the right direction. The trend is going upwards, even if every single day doesn't seem like a stair step above the day before that. All right. So those are the things that we're talking about when we're talking about getting results. But how does that happen? Well, we kind of break it down into more or less a 3-step formula. Getting results comes from 1, challenging your muscles, 2, recovering from the challenge, and 3, repeating the challenge. And the reason why we bring that up is because if there's anything that you are doing, either from a workout perspective, lifestyle perspective, whatever it is, that is prohibiting you or downgrading your ability to challenge your muscles, to recover from the challenge, and to repeat the challenge. If any one of those things is not, being, I'm not going to say like maximize or optimize, but if there's anything that you're doing that is limiting your ability to challenge your muscles, recover from the challenge, and repeat the challenge, in some way, it is then limiting the results that you can get from your workouts in terms of building strength, endurance, body awareness, balance, and decreasing limitations, okay? And the reason why we need to understand that is because if you're thinking, oh, I need to do this new program, or I need to try this new, methodology, or whatever it is, at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is challenging your muscles, recovering from the challenge, and repeating the challenge. And then you can plug and play with whatever you want from that. But as long as you're doing that, challenging your muscles, recovering from the challenge, repeating the challenge, you are going to give yourself pretty solid opportunity to get the results that you're wanting to get. But if you're not getting the results that you want to get, that's where this discussion picks up now, okay? Because a lot of times we think, oh, I'm not getting the results that I want to get, even though I'm doing the working out and everything like that. I'm still not where I want to be. I'm not making the progress I want to make. It must mean that I need to try something new, okay? But there's actually 2 steps before you try something new that we want to highlight for you today. And that is, the first one is what you're doing, you actually need to be doing it better. All right, you need to do it better. And what does better mean? Better is utilizing the 4 exercise for life principles with every exercise, every set, every rep, every workout that you do. You are injecting the 4 exercise for life principles. Those are the guidelines that you're following every single moment of your exercise. And that in and of itself is going to make your workouts better and more likely to get you the results that you're wanting to get.
Now, in previous podcasts, you might have heard us talk about the how. And this is the better, right? It's like, it's not what you're doing. Meaning, we don't need you to go from, doing this type of workout that you're currently doing and just ditch all of it and do something brand new.
Right. It's not like, oh, you're doing squats and instead you need to do lunges or
Right.
whatever. It's just like you need to change how you're doing it.
Right, exactly. There's so much change and improvement that can happen in your body just by changing how you're exercising. And we're calling this, first, make your workouts better. And the 4 exercise for life principles, just like Charlie said, is the way you're going to make it better. So just briefly, if you're brand new here, we do have 4 exercise for life principles. And these principles, if you apply them to every exercise that you do, it will make them 1,000 times better. You will recover faster, and you'll be able to return to your workout better and faster. So remember, Charlie said, the way you get changes with your exercise, or the way we know we can apply stimulus to your body and get these positive changes, is we have to challenge your muscles. We have to recover from that challenge. We have to return to that challenge. And so this is the best way to expedite that process, because I know we're all impatient. We want to go as quickly as possible, and exercise, which is kind of a slower thing in terms of changing our can potentially take longer than we hope. If we can speed it up, it's all better. So the first thing is that when you exercise, you have to use your symptom-free, pain-free, full range of motion. So any motion you're doing, let's take an overhead press where you have your arms like in a goalpost position and you press them up above your head. You want to feel like, hey, I'm lifting my weights, doing that motion, but I'm only using the range that is pain and symptom-free, stretch-free, tight-free, right? So that's step number 1. Step 2 is going to be maintain your moving and non-moving parts. So every time you do an exercise, there are parts of your body that move. There are parts of your body that don't move. So if we stick with the overhead press idea, your shoulders, your elbows, your hands, your upper limb basically is the mover. But the rest of your body does not move. So during your set, you want to make sure that I keep my non-moving part not moving and my moving part moving. So a violation to this rule would be if you started lunging your body back and forth or arching your spine. That's a non-moving segment that should stay non-moving versus start to use it so that you're getting in more reps or whatever. So make sure that you're keeping your moving parts moving, your non-moving parts not moving. Principle number 3 is going to be to move slowly. One of the best ways externally that makes sense to a lot of people is just move really slow. You probably will be the slowest person in the gym. This helps to make sure that all the other principles stay in place, because you're not going to be rushing through any exercise. It's going to highlight the muscle squeeze, which is what makes all the changes when you exercise, and it's going to keep you really safe. And the last principle is focus on the muscle squeeze. When we use the exercise for life principles and we make workouts better, the whole thing is we want to change the exercise from being an external experience to an internal experience. Reason being, the internal parts of your body are what change to create results. So when we're thinking about going from external, that's stuff like counting reps, keeping up with the teacher, watching the news while you lift weights, things like that distract you. It takes you out of your body. We're actually going to be zoning back in for Exercise for Life principle number 4. Focus on your muscle squeeze. So for an overhead press, we're thinking about the shoulders, we're thinking about the traps, we're thinking about your arm muscles squeezing. So we're focused on the muscles that are being highlighted while you exercise them.
Exactly. So those are the 4 Exercise for Life principles, and that's how you make the workouts that you're currently doing better. Apply each of those principles. So again, every rep, every set of every exercise that you're currently doing, and you're going to have a better opportunity to get the results from your workouts because you're going to be able to challenge your muscles more, you're going to be able to recover from the challenge easier, and you're going to be able to repeat the challenge more frequently, okay? So that's number 1. Start making your workouts better, or start doing your workouts better. Number 2, start doing more. So it's better, and then step 2 is more. Okay, now more has different components of it. Okay, the first is the frequency. Like, you just may need to be working out more often. If you feel like your strength isn't progressing, you're like, yeah, I do my strength training twice a week. It's like, well, you maybe need to be doing it 3 to 4 times a week. All right, your frequency may just need to increase in order to get the results that you want. All right, the next thing that may need to increase is actually the challenge, the relative intensity that you're working out with. So if you're at like twice a week and you're like, well, I'm not getting results, first bump up that frequency. All right, get up to that 3 to 4 days a week. Then start increasing the challenge. How close are you pushing yourself to your maximum in terms of like how much weight you're able to lift or how fatigued you're able to get during a set? We're not saying that every single set needs to be your 1 rep max, but if you're going to do a set for like 10 reps or something like that, how close to your 10 rep max of like not being able to move the weight anymore on that 10th rep are you? Are you at, a 6 out of 10 challenge? Are you at an 8 out of 10 challenge? Are you at like a little 10 out of 10 challenge where you cannot get anything more out of your muscles for that set? You cannot do another rep because you have fatigued yourself so much. So 1, increase the frequency. 2, increase the challenge. And then 3, start to increase the volume, where now you're working out more frequently, you're working out intensely, and then you're going to start doing more of the intense stuff during your workouts. Instead of doing 1 to 2 sets, maybe you're doing 3 sets and then you build up to a 4th set, something like that. But you're adding more volume in that way, making sure that you're still able to recover from the challenge and you're still able to come back and repeat the challenge, never sacrificing the frequency of which you're exercising because you're adding so much volume, and not sacrificing the intensity with which you're exercising because you're trying to add so much volume. From a results perspective, in my opinion, it would be far more effective to do 2 to 3 sets of like maximum effort, like full 10 out of 10 fatigue level where you get yourself to that during the set, than do 4 to 5 sets of exercises that end at that kind of 6 to 8 out of 10 challenge. Like, getting to that last little bit is a huge, huge thing when it comes to getting the results that you're wanting from your workouts. And so first we need to increase the frequency, then the intensity, and then finally the volume.
That's right. Now, make sure that you are not taking step 2 out of context. Remember, step 1 came first. You have to make your workouts better. Because if your workouts currently, let's say that you're not getting the results because every time you go and lift weights, you feel more tight after. You feel more achy. You actually feel like, I'm actually weaker for a day or 2 after. You're not feeling so good with your workouts. Well, remember, you have to do step number 1. But once you master step number 1 of getting those 4 Exercise for Life principles, that's where step number 2 becomes like the highlighted thing. And this is where a lot of people get a lot of pushback. They're like, well, I'm already doing it twice a week. That's what fits in my schedule, yada, yada, yada. Step 2 is where you need to focus. Don't jump to step number 3, which we'll get to, and you're going to notice, oh yeah, I always do jump to step number 3 because everyone does. But step number 2 is so, so important. We want to think about frequency. If you're not lifting weights 4 days a week or more, and you're not seeing results, that's the first thing, is really build up your frequency in which you're returning to the weights. You'll notice that once you master step number 1, your time needed for recovery will drop. Meaning that you can do it days in a row because you're not harassing your muscles and you're not making them need so much time rest in between. And so get that frequency up. The next thing that Charlie brought up is we need that volume. We need to be having more reps, more opportunity for change when we exercise. And the last one is that challenge. Challenge is an interesting one because unless a lot of times when we feel like my current workouts are kind of tough, we just have this blanket label statement of tough, right? And anything above that will often represent injury to a lot of people. It's like, well, if I do that, it could mean that I get injured. But it also could mean that you have this opportunity for change. And so if you can master step number 1, the 4 exercise for life principles, that's what keeps you safe as you increase the challenge. And if you're not seeing the results that you want, I'm going to challenge you to try more challenge. Maybe you just start with 1 rep and show yourself, hey, I could drop my 10s and do 15s. Wow, I didn't realize I could do that because I labeled 10s as really hard. I labeled 10s as, my maximum. And now I realize I actually could do 15. Or switching up volume, right? Making it so, wow, I always did 2 sets because that's just the cycles that I do. And hey, you actually could do 3. You could get another one in. So again, really analyze these 3 parts: frequency, volume, and challenge if you're not noticing the results that you want from your workouts after you've mastered step number 1, which is making everything better with the 4 exercise for life principles.
Yeah, Julie, you said a really great point, which was if you are concerned about injuring yourself by adding the challenge, the 4 exercise for life principles are what prevents that. The 4 exercise for life principles are what keeps you safe during your workout. So that's why step number 1 is the better, like making sure you have mastery over those 4 exercise for life principles, and then you start to add the more, okay? And so it doesn't mean that like you need to be 100% perfect with the exercise for life principles before you start to add any challenge, but you should feel like, okay, yeah, like a good percentage of the time that I'm working out, like I'm mindful of my range of motion, I'm controlling my moving and non-moving segments, I'm really trying to move slowly and able to lock in and focus on my muscle squeeze. All right, great. Let's start to add the more as far as the frequency, as far as the challenge, and as far as the volume. And then once you get to that point where you are really locked in on using the 4 exercise for life principles and you are doing so on a consistent basis, you've increased your frequency, you've increased the challenge where you are really fatiguing yourself during a set, you're pushing your body to the point where you're feeling like, not like you're going to injure yourself, but like, wow, like this is my limit right now. And you've increased the volume to the point where you're like, okay, yeah, I'm really fatigued during my workouts, but I'm still able to recover from them and I'm still able to repeat them. And if you get to that point and you're like, yeah, I'm just still not getting the results that I want, then it's like, okay, now it's time for new. Now it's time to switch up. You don't even have to like completely switch programs and go from, doing something that's like really slow to all of a sudden doing something that's really fast or whatever. You just maybe switch out a couple different exercises. Like instead of doing a leg press, maybe you do, a hex bar deadlift, or, instead of doing a shoulder press, maybe you do a lateral raise. Like it doesn't have to be this dramatic, a rearrangement of everything. It's just like, okay, well, just switch out some pieces and get back to doing it better, doing it more, and then see if you need to switch out a couple pieces. Because for most people, doing a general, like just kind of construct of some kind of workout program, you're going to get results. You're going to get the results that you want as long as you're doing it better and as long as you're doing it more, okay? It's really not ever the new piece that needs to be messed with until you get to a certain point in your training experience where you're like, my body's just so used to this stimulus now that I actually do need to switch things up because I'm just kind of plateauing. Rarely do people ever get there unless you're really pushing yourself with your workouts.
That's right, Charlie. And if you go through step number 1 and 2 and 3 and things aren't working out, definitely get on the table with MAT because something functionally in your body is not recruiting correctly, and that could be leading to why your body keeps breaking down. But let's walk through like a practical example of like taking someone through this, because we do this with clients all the time. So let's say someone comes in to our studio and they're like, yeah, okay, we're gonna do some exercise, but like, let's not do lunges. Cause like every time I do lunges, it like throws my back out and I feel really tight. And then, I feel like I can't, play tennis or I can't golf. And, just the lunges are really bad. And so the first thing that client is thinking, or what most people think, is like lunge, toss it out, pick something new. Mm-hmm. Don't do lunges, do a squat. Don't do lunges, do a leg press. Something else other than lunge. Our thought process is we don't want to create this giant list of exercises that you can't do, because then then as years go by, you start having this long list of things that your body literally can't do. So the first thing that we say is like, okay, the way you did lunges before didn't agree with your body. But there are a lot of things that we can change about that lunge to first make it better. So the first thing that we do is we find out where can this person move with symptom-free range of motion. Maybe that's bringing the legs closer together. Maybe that means not going up or down so far. Maybe that means changing the rotation of your legs. Maybe that means going from dumbbells to a hex bar, or dumbbells to nothing, or dumbbells to a medicine ball holding in your hand. So changing the how. So number one, making sure that range of motion is feeling good. Number two, making sure that they are using and maintaining their moving parts and their non-moving parts. You know, maybe their back was tightening up because every time they went down, they would flex forward with their spine. Maybe their back was tightening up because every time they went down, they would arch their spine, right? So something with a non-moving part, or there could be something with the moving part. So making sure we figure out exercise for life principle number two. Almost everyone goes way too fast. So we already know we're going to change that one. I need you to go down with 5 seconds and come up with 5 seconds versus up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And then number four, meaning instead of thinking about counting the reps or talking to me, their trainer, or whatever they're doing, I need you to focus on the muscles squeezing. So we need to make the lunge, in this example, better first. And that takes care of a really large percentage of all issues with lunges. And good news, now you can keep lunges on the list of things that you can do, because we want to keep you as functional as possible for as long as possible. The second thing would be to do more of it, right? So once you're not having a negative side effect from doing some lunges, figuring out how to do more. Can we make it more frequently? Can we increase the volume? Can we increase the challenge? And then the last thing, our last ditch effort, is going to be replace it with something new. We don't want to be throwing out exercise, throwing out movements, because think, even though I've never done a real lunge in real life. I've done variations of a lunge. I've done things to get down and get toys off my floor. So we want to make sure that we are keeping as many motions and as many like lifting exercises as possible in our our repertoire, so that when it goes to function and goes to our real life, we're able to do more and more things.
Absolutely. I love how you broke it down in that example, because that makes it super practical. I think the other thing about the new aspect is every time you add something new or switch something out for something new, there's going to be a relearning process that your brain, your neuromuscular system have to go through in order to be able to figure out how to coordinate these new movements, in order to figure out like how to actually do the task. It would be like if you're like, okay, well, I want to learn how to waltz, and you did one lesson of learning how to waltz, and you're like, no, it's not really for me. Maybe I'm going to learn how to rumba. And then you do that, and you're like, no, that's not really, I'm going to learn how to salsa. No, that's not really for me. I mean, so you're just kind of jumping from one to the next, because you're thinking like, oh, well, if I just find that new thing that really clicks with me, now all of a sudden I'll get the results of becoming, a world-class dancer or whatever. It's like, well, actually, maybe first you need to make sure like you're getting good instruction. Then you need to make sure like you're actually doing it enough. And then finally, after you can validate that, yeah, I have a really good instructor, I'm doing it a whole bunch, it's just not really clicking for me. Okay, cool. Then go on to the next dance step, all right? Same idea with your workouts. First, make sure that you're doing them better. Second, start doing them more in terms of frequency, in terms of the challenge, and in terms of the volume during your workouts, and then start to add in the new, swapping stuff out or adding new pieces in. So if you're hearing all this and you're like, okay, well, I love that we need to start with better, but how do I go about applying the 4 exercise for life principles within my workouts? You talked about them. I really don't have a grasp enough for them to start doing this on my own. It's exactly what we teach you to do within the Exercise for Life membership. Every single workout within the membership, every single program is all designed using the 4 Exercise for Life principles, and we're cueing you through them with every exercise, with every workout. Right now, you can get 30 days access to the entire membership, all the workouts, all the programs for free by going to www.exerciseforlifestudios.com. And like Julie said, if you're going through this process and you're like, yeah, something still isn't working right, I'm still not getting the results that I want, even though I'm trying to do them better, even though I'm trying to do it more, I'm trying new stuff, but that's not really working either, that may be an indication that there's something going on from a neuromuscular perspective where things just aren't firing the way they need to fire, the way your muscles are designed to fire. And that is what we help you resolve with muscle activation techniques. That is our specialty here at Muscle Activation Activation Schaumburg. So if you would like to experience muscle activation techniques for yourself and get on our schedule, all you have to do to see our availability is go to www.matschaumburg.com. On our website, there's a big green button that says Get Started. You can click that and you can see our availability and schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that is always excited about starting the new workout program but never really sticks with it and therefore never really sees the results that they're wanting to get from their workout program? Share this episode with them so they can understand the importance of actually putting the new stuff as the last step and starting with better and then going to more and then finally going to new. And while you're online, head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to us and leave us a rating and a review. Not only does it help people find our podcast when they're looking for information on exercise, it also helps them find our podcast when they're looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us a 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.